Pause for just a moment and ask yourself why these words found you at this exact point in your journey. Out of everything that could have captured your attention, something invisible encouraged you to remain here, even if you cannot fully explain why. That feeling is worth honoring because what you are experiencing is far from ordinary. The day of July 7th is not simply another page on the calendar. It represents a crossing point, a powerful passage where one chapter of consciousness gives way to another. You are not watching this moment from a distance. You have arrived at the very edge of it, where the familiar begins to dissolve and a different reality quietly waits to be recognized. Before moving forward, pay close attention to what is happening within you. If there is an unexpected pull in your heart, if your inner voice suddenly feels clearer than it has in weeks, if something inside refuses to dismiss these words as coincidence, then allow yourself to remain present until the very end. Do not turn away before you understand why you were brought here. If even the smallest part of your spirit resonates with this message, support this video, subscribe, and consciously align yourself with the energy surrounding this experience. Because what you are about to discover may influence the direction of your path in ways that are impossible to predict today. Trust the invisible thread that guided you here, because the 77 portal does not reveal itself to every soul. Yet somehow it has revealed itself to you. Beneath everything visible, powerful movements are already unfolding beyond the reach of ordinary perception. The heavens continue adjusting their planetary alignments. Invisible energetic streams intersect and merge in ways most people never notice. Ancient vibrations that have remained dormant for what feels like ages are beginning to awaken from the deepest layers of existence itself. Throughout history, the number 7 has carried profound spiritual symbolism. It echoes through the 7 chakras that harmonize the body. It reflects the 7 dimensions associated with expanding awareness beyond ordinary perception. It appears again within the 7 gateways that symbolize the passage between the person you have been and the person you are capable of becoming. When one sacred 7 joins another, something far greater begins to unfold. The barrier separating what is seen from what has always existed behind the scenes becomes remarkably thin. As that boundary weakens, truth no longer waits quietly in the background. It rises into your awareness with undeniable strength. Illusions that once seemed permanent begin losing their hold. Hidden currents emerge from places you never thought to examine. Your soul starts recovering memories that your thinking mind has forgotten for far too long. Perhaps recently you have noticed subtle changes within yourself. Maybe you feel unusually restless without understanding why. Perhaps your emotions seem more intense than before, or the routines that once brought comfort now feel strangely empty. It is important that you do not mistake these experiences for confusion. They are evidence of activation. Not everyone is able to recognize this shift because not everyone has reached the point where deeper awareness begins unfolding. Many people will encounter messages like this and continue scrolling without a second thought, unchanged because nothing within them has been stirred awake. You stopped. You listened. That decision alone says more about your journey than you may realize. Long before your current life began, your soul was already preparing for experiences like this. Your presence here is not the result of chance. It reflects an inner sensitivity that has always separated you from the ordinary. Somewhere beneath every doubt, every setback, and every unanswered question, there's always been a quiet certainty that your life carried a purpose larger than what others could see. Now the universe is responding to that silent knowing. This portal has not appeared randomly. Every aspect of its timing is deliberate. It opens only when you are prepared to recognize truths that were previously hidden from your awareness, to embrace feelings you once avoided, and to become the version of yourself that fear convinced you to postpone. Before this transformation reaches its fullest expression, the universe begins communicating through unmistakable signals. There are 7 of them. They are not simply gentle reminders. They are messages designed to prepare you, guide you, and encourage you to continue moving forward. If you overlook them, your life continues along the same familiar path. If you recognize them, everything begins shifting from the inside outward. The first sign appears through your changing relationship with time itself. Think carefully about your recent experiences. Does time seem less predictable than it once did? Have you noticed moments stretching far beyond what seems possible, while entire days disappear almost before you realize they have begun? Certain memories suddenly become incredibly vivid, while other events seem to vanish into the background without explanation. At times it may feel as though reality itself is quietly reorganizing around you, no longer following the dependable patterns you once accepted without question. This sensation is not the product of imagination. It reflects the expansion of your perception beyond the limits of ordinary, linear experience. The 77 portal interrupts the familiar illusion of time precisely because its nature exists beyond those boundaries. As its influence grows stronger, your consciousness gradually releases its attachment to rigid sequences of past, present, and future. Instead, you begin sensing them as one flowing stream moving continuously through your awareness. That realization can feel unfamiliar, even unsettling at first, yet it marks the beginning of something extraordinary. It is the first unmistakable indication that you are leaving limitation behind and entering a broader state of consciousness. The second sign arrives without warning through your emotional world. Feelings that once remained buried begin rising unexpectedly, as though a locked chamber within your heart has finally been opened. Waves of emotion emerge with surprising intensity, asking not to be feared or suppressed, but to be understood. And this unfolding marks the next stage of the journey that is only beginning to reveal itself. What may surprise you most is that the next stage of this journey rarely begins with excitement. Instead, it often arrives through emotions that seem impossible to explain. You may suddenly feel a deep sadness, even though nothing around you appears to have changed. Without warning, moments of remarkable understanding may flash through your mind with the force of lightning, revealing truths that had remained hidden for far too long. Just as quickly, an unexpected sense of calm may settle over you, only to be followed by uncertainty that seems determined to pull you back into old patterns. Long forgotten memories may suddenly return with astonishing detail, not because your mind randomly wandered into the past, but because those experiences have quietly waited for this exact moment to be acknowledged. Do not mistake this process for weakness or believe it means something inside you is failing. What you are experiencing is the release of energy that has remained trapped beneath the surface for far longer than it was ever meant to stay. As the 77 portal becomes active, it begins clearing everything that no longer belongs within your energetic field. Old emotional pain, unresolved experiences, and truths that were pushed into the background begin moving toward the light. Their purpose is not to punish you or overwhelm your heart. Their purpose is liberation. Although the intensity may sometimes feel almost unbearable, remember this above everything else. You are not falling apart. You are allowing an outdated version of yourself to fall away so that something more authentic can emerge. The next indication of this transformation is often quieter, yet it reaches just as deeply into your life. You may gradually notice an invisible distance forming between yourself and people who once felt inseparable from your everyday world. Conversations that previously flowed with ease begin feeling strangely hollow. Interactions that once energized you may now leave you emotionally exhausted. Relationships that seemed effortless suddenly carry an unfamiliar heaviness, and no matter how hard you try, you cannot recreate what once existed. This change can be one of the most painful experiences connected to the 77 portal because it challenges your sense of belonging. Yet it is also one of the clearest signs that genuine transformation is taking place. This portal does not invite partial change. It reshapes your entire energetic landscape. As your vibration continues rising, anything unable to harmonize with that new frequency naturally begins drifting away. While your heart may interpret this as loss, the deeper truth is something entirely different. This is alignment revealing itself. Every soul is not destined to accompany you into the next chapter of your evolution. Beneath every attempt to understand what is happening, there is already a quiet part of you that recognizes exactly which connections belong in your future and which ones have completed their purpose. As this unfolding continues, another remarkable change begins making itself impossible to ignore. The voice within you grows stronger than it has ever been before. What once appeared as subtle intuition now arrives with unmistakable certainty. You begin sensing the direction you should take before your logical mind has collected any evidence. Situations reveal themselves long before words are spoken. You instinctively recognize the emotional atmosphere surrounding people without needing visible confirmation. Decisions appear with surprising clarity, almost as though they have been gently placed into your awareness from somewhere beyond ordinary thinking. These experiences are not random coincidences. They reflect your inner guidance, reconnecting with the greater intelligence flowing throughout the universe. The 77 portal strengthens this intuitive connection. Because the path ahead cannot be navigated through logic alone, your next steps require trust that extends beyond analysis. Your intuition becomes the compass designed specifically for this passage. If you continue ignoring it, confusion will seem to follow wherever you go. If you choose to honor it, every movement begins carrying you toward exactly where your soul has always intended to arrive. Soon after, another powerful desire may begin emerging from within you, one that even you might struggle to understand at first. There will be moments when you feel an overwhelming need to step away from the constant activity surrounding you. This desire does not arise because you dislike people or because sadness has taken hold of your heart. It comes from something much deeper, an instinct that recognizes your inner world needs room to breathe. Sounds that once blended into the background suddenly feel overwhelming. Endless conversations lose their appeal. Places that once offered comfort may now feel strangely disconnected from who you are becoming. You may find yourself searching for silence, choosing solitude over distraction, and longing for peaceful spaces where your thoughts can finally settle. Do not confuse this experience with loneliness. It is a sacred invitation inward. The 77 portal gently draws your awareness away from external noise, because genuine transformation cannot fully unfold while your attention remains scattered. It asks for stillness. It asks for openness. It asks you to create enough quiet that the wisdom hidden beneath everyday distractions can finally reach your consciousness. Within that silence, something extraordinary begins speaking with remarkable clarity. It has always been present, patiently waiting until you became ready to hear it. As your awareness expands even further, reality itself starts communicating through patterns that are impossible to dismiss. Repeating numbers begin appearing with surprising consistency on clocks, receipts, digital screens, and unexpected places. You may repeatedly encounter sequences such as 11, 222, and 707. Alongside these numbers come extraordinary coincidences that seem almost too perfectly arranged to belong to ordinary chance. Events connect in ways that defy simple explanation, creating moments that feel as though an invisible hand has quietly organized every detail. This is not randomness unfolding before your eyes. It is communication expressed through symbols rather than language. The universe often chooses patterns instead of sentences because symbols move beyond logic and speak directly to your deeper awareness. These experiences are never intended to create confusion. They exist to reassure you that every step you are taking belongs exactly where it should within this unfolding journey. Every recurring number, every meaningful coincidence, and every unmistakable synchronicity serves as another confirmation that you are moving in harmony with the path now opening before you. And each one quietly prepares your awareness for the final sign that is still waiting to reveal itself. Every meaningful pattern that appears before you carries the same quiet invitation. Slow down and truly notice what is unfolding. Each moment of alignment is like a gentle signal, asking you to become more aware, because once the 77 portal reaches its fullest expression, the distance between your awareness and universal intelligence becomes remarkably small. As that invisible boundary continues to dissolve, the guidance arriving in your life becomes increasingly clear until pretending not to notice it is no longer possible. Then comes the seventh and final indication, perhaps the most life-changing of them all, because it does not simply influence how you feel. It begins reshaping where your entire life is headed. At first, the change is almost impossible to detect. It arrives quietly like the first light before sunrise, but with every passing day its presence becomes stronger. You begin sensing an irresistible attraction towards something that previously occupied little or none of your attention. It may appear as a new purpose, an unexpected passion, or an idea that awakens something ancient inside you. Strangely, it feels unfamiliar and deeply familiar at exactly the same time. Those around you may struggle to understand why you suddenly care so deeply about this new direction. Even you may find yourself unable to explain it with complete logic. Yet, despite every unanswered question, the pull continues growing stronger. It reaches into your thoughts throughout the day. It quietly returns whenever your mind becomes still. It asks for your attention again and again, almost as though an invisible force has been patiently guiding you toward a destination your soul recognized long before your conscious mind became aware of it. This is not passing curiosity or temporary excitement. This is alignment revealing itself through your own inner experience. The 77 portal awakens the higher path that has always existed beneath fear, uncertainty, and limitation. It begins revealing small pieces of the life your spirit has been preparing to live. The more you attempt to ignore this invitation, the more persistent it becomes, because your soul already recognizes what your thoughts are only beginning to understand. Now pause for a moment and observe the entire picture, instead of focusing on individual experiences. Consider everything that has been unfolding around and within you, your changing perception of time, the unexpected rise of powerful emotions, the growing distance between yourself and certain relationships, the unmistakable strengthening of your intuition, the deep desire for silence and solitude, the repeating numbers and meaningful synchronicities that continue appearing in your daily life, and now this undeniable attraction toward a greater purpose. None of these experiences exist separately. They are woven together with remarkable precision. They support one another like pieces of a much larger design. What you have been experiencing is not a collection of unrelated events. It is a carefully unfolding process, carrying profound intention. These 7 signs are not random reactions to ordinary life. They are evidence of transformation taking place beneath the surface of your awareness. They represent the language through which the universe communicates with you, preparing you for a shift that permanently changes the direction of your inner journey. You are not standing inside a period of punishment or examination. You are entering an initiation. This initiation opens the door to greater awareness, deeper truth, and a more authentic version of yourself that has quietly existed beneath every layer of fear, habit, and limitation. Yet this is also the moment when everything becomes more urgent than many people realize. Experiencing these signs alone is not enough. Many individuals will encounter the same inner changes without recognizing their significance. Some will dismiss their emotional intensity rather than listening to it. Others will fill every moment with distractions because silence feels unfamiliar. Some will explain away meaningful synchronicities as ordinary coincidence. Little by little, without dramatic warning, the opportunity begins slipping away. The clarity that once felt unmistakable gradually fades. The powerful energy surrounding the experience slowly becomes quiet again. Possibilities that seemed ready to emerge begin disappearing back beneath the surface. Few people speak about this reality because it requires personal responsibility. The 77 portal does not remain open indefinitely. It represents a precise window of alignment that asks for awareness combined with conscious action. Ignoring it does not simply leave your life unchanged. It slowly increases the distance between who you currently are and who you are always capable of becoming. You have certainly experienced important changes before. Life has already presented challenges, meaningful lessons, and moments that reshaped your understanding of yourself. Yet something about this experience carries an entirely different quality. There is a depth to it that feels impossible to describe with ordinary language. It carries unusual intensity, undeniable significance, and the unmistakable feeling that one chapter is reaching its conclusion, while another quietly prepares to begin. If that sensation has been difficult to explain, trust that you are not imagining it. The 77 portal represents far more than another temporary stage of growth. It functions as a threshold separating 2 distinct versions of your own existence. One version continues repeating familiar cycles, remaining comfortably asleep inside patterns that no longer encourage growth. The other version awakens with intention, steps beyond fear, and chooses alignment instead of remaining attached to comfort. Eventually, remaining between these 2 possibilities becomes impossible. A decision always arrives. You either continue walking the familiar road or you consciously accept the invitation waiting beyond it. If you notice resistance rising within you while hearing these words, if part of you wants to reject this message, question its relevance or quietly convince yourself that none of it truly applies to your own life, understand that this reaction is not unusual. In fact, it often appears precisely when genuine transformation draws near. Resistance is not proof that you are moving in the wrong direction. More often, it signals that something meaningful is asking to be acknowledged. Growth rarely feels comfortable while it is happening. Expansion almost never feels completely secure. Every step into unfamiliar territory naturally awakens fear, uncertainty, hesitation, and doubt, because your mind believes its responsibility is to preserve what already feels predictable, even when those familiar patterns have stopped serving your highest good. Meanwhile, another part of you continues moving in the opposite direction. Your soul keeps inviting you forward with quiet persistence. That invisible tension between fear and inner certainty, between hesitation and the desire to discover what lies beyond it, is not standing in the way of transformation. It is the very place where transformation begins to take shape, preparing you for what comes next. At this very moment, whether you fully understand it or not, you are standing before an opening that cannot be detected through ordinary sight. Your eyes may never recognize it, yet another part of you already knows it is there. You sense it in the quiet changes unfolding within your awareness. You recognize it through the subtle feeling that life is no longer moving in quite the same way it did before. There is an unmistakable impression that something meaningful is approaching, as though you have reached the edge of an invisible boundary separating everything that has been familiar from everything that is waiting to emerge. This doorway asks nothing of you through force or obligation. It never pushes, demands, or persuades. Instead, it remains patiently present, allowing your own free will to determine whether you continue standing where you have always been, or choose to move into something entirely different. The instant you decide to cross that unseen threshold, a process begins that reaches far beyond a single decision. Your direction starts changing. Your energetic state begins reorganizing itself. The reality surrounding your life gradually rearranges in ways that cannot simply be reversed. Yet, none of that unfolds without your willingness to take the first step. It asks you to trust something your mind cannot completely explain. It invites you to continue even before every answer has revealed itself. Every awakening eventually reaches a point where simply noticing the signs is no longer enough. Until now, you have observed remarkable shifts within yourself. You have recognized unusual experiences that refuse to fit inside ordinary explanations. You have sensed an invisible pull guiding your attention towards something much greater than your previous understanding. But now the energy surrounding this moment is asking for more than awareness. It is asking for commitment. It is asking for a conscious decision made in the present rather than postponed until a more comfortable time. The 77 portal does not remain suspended while uncertainty slowly disappears. It responds to clarity. It responds to intention. Most importantly, it responds to movement. Even remaining motionless becomes a decision of its own. Choosing not to act still creates a path, one that quietly returns you to familiar cycles you have already begun outgrowing. Deep within yourself, you can probably feel that truth already. There is a gentle pressure continuing to build beneath your everyday thoughts. It does not disappear when you distract yourself. It quietly returns whenever life becomes still. That sensation is often misunderstood as anxiety, yet it carries an entirely different origin. It is alignment, asking to become action. It marks the moment where two directions stand before you. One leads back toward what is predictable. The other leads into what cannot yet be fully seen. Somewhere beneath every doubt, your soul already recognizes which path belongs to your future. As you continue approaching this invisible threshold, another presence naturally begins making itself known. Fear arrives. It rarely appears dramatically. More often it speaks in quiet questions that slowly weaken certainty. It whispers that perhaps you should wait a little longer. It encourages you to believe that you need additional proof before trusting your own experience. It convinces you that greater confidence must come first, followed by action sometime later. Yet it is important to understand the true nature of fear within moments like these. Its purpose is not to illuminate your direction. Its purpose is to keep you inside boundaries that have always felt safe. Fear carries the echoes of every limitation that has ever been placed upon your life. It repeats every lesson that taught you to remain predictable instead of expansive. It reminds you to avoid uncertainty, even when certainty has become too small for the person you are becoming. Yet despite those familiar voices, you continue sensing something beyond them. That feeling is significant. It does not exist to tell you that you should retreat. It exists because you have reached the very edge of expansion itself. Nothing designed to keep you small will ever feel completely aligned with the greater version of yourself that is now beginning to emerge. Beneath the endless noise of everyday life, beneath the uncertainty, beneath years of expectations, habits, and conditioning, something far older has quietly remained alive inside you. It is beginning to awaken once again. This awakening does not introduce something unfamiliar into your life. Instead, it reconnects you with something that has always existed beneath the surface. It resembles a memory, though not the kind attached to specific events or conversations. It is a remembrance of your deepest essence. It carries the unmistakable recognition that you have always been more than the identity you learned to accept. You are more than the labels you have collected throughout your life. You are more than the limitations you gradually mistook for permanent truth. The 77 portal does not create new power inside you. It reveals the power that has quietly belonged to you from the very beginning. As that remembrance grows stronger, two very different emotions may arise together. One part of you feels deeply empowered, while another part feels unexpectedly unsettled. This happens because remembering your authentic nature requires releasing the version of yourself that was built around survival rather than truth. Once that process begins, nothing remains exactly the same. You may gradually discover that aspects of your identity no longer fit as comfortably as they once did. Roles you carried without question suddenly feel exhausting. Descriptions of yourself that once brought pride begin feeling surprisingly restrictive. Even your own reflection may seem different as your understanding of who you are continues changing from within. It may appear as though the image you spent years protecting is slowly dissolving before your eyes. Resist the temptation to mistake this for confusion. It is transformation expressing itself exactly as it must. The version of you that learned only to endure is making room for the version capable of truly living. Before that authentic self can fully emerge, the older identity naturally begins falling away. That process may feel uncomfortable because every ending carries uncertainty. There may even be moments when it seems as though you are losing yourself entirely. Yet, the deeper truth moves in the opposite direction. You are not disappearing. You are uncovering layers that have remained hidden beneath everything you believed you had to become. As this unfolds, another unmistakable energy begins surrounding your experience. It feels almost electric, impossible to define with ordinary language, yet impossible to deny once it has been felt. You recognize it through the changing responses within your own body. Your thoughts begin moving with unusual speed. Your awareness becomes sharper than before. At unexpected moments, remarkable clarity appears without warning, only to be followed by powerful waves of intensity that seem to emerge from nowhere, quietly preparing you for the next stage of this extraordinary unfolding. What you are feeling now is the natural effect of the 77 portal, increasing the vibration of your awareness and gradually bringing your entire being into harmony with a higher level of consciousness that still feels unfamiliar to you. That unfamiliarity is important because every genuine transformation begins before comfort has a chance to catch up. Nothing about this process exists to weigh you down or leave you trapped in uncertainty. Its purpose is to lift you beyond the limitations that once defined your reality. Yet every elevation asks for adaptation. Every expansion asks your mind, your emotions, and your spirit to adjust to a new way of existing. During that period of adjustment, every experience naturally feels more intense. Your emotions become clearer. Your perceptions become sharper. The smallest moments begin carrying greater meaning because you are no longer observing life from the same level of awareness. You are beginning to experience reality through a deeper connection with what has always existed beneath the surface. Even while everything around you appears to be growing more powerful, there remains a quiet presence that never loses its balance. It does not compete for your attention through fear or urgency. It does not attempt to control your decisions. Instead, it patiently continues pointing you toward a direction that feels unmistakably right, even when your logical mind struggles to explain why. You may notice this guidance arriving as an unexpected realization that appears without effort. It may reveal itself through an instinct that refuses to disappear no matter how often you question it. There may be moments when you suddenly understand exactly what your next step should be, without needing evidence or lengthy analysis. This is not an outside force attempting to control your future. It is wisdom already living within you, moving naturally through your awareness, now that the noise surrounding it has begun to fade. Every time you choose to trust that quiet inner knowing, its voice becomes easier to recognize. Every time you follow it despite uncertainty, your confidence in it grows stronger. That guidance is not trying to lead you towards something distant or unfamiliar. It is gently returning you to the truest version of yourself, the self that existed long before fear, expectation, and conditioning convinced you to become someone else. As your awareness continues expanding, another change quietly unfolds alongside it. Your ability to recognize what genuinely belongs in your life becomes far more refined. With that growing clarity comes a natural separation from anything that no longer supports the person you are becoming. Habits that once felt automatic may suddenly seem empty. Places that once felt comfortable may begin feeling strangely disconnected from your energy. Thoughts you accepted without question may now invite deeper examination. You may find yourself stepping back from situations you previously embraced without hesitation, because something inside you quietly recognizes they no longer reflect your truth. This shift should never be mistaken for rejection or emotional distance. It is the development of discernment. The 77 portal strengthens your perception until remaining inside what is no longer aligned begins to feel impossible. While that realization can sometimes create moments of loneliness, it also offers extraordinary freedom. Every outdated belief released from your life creates room for something that resonates more honestly with who you are becoming. Every attachment that falls away allows a more authentic experience to enter. Gradually, as those unnecessary layers continue dissolving, a different foundation begins forming within you. Your inner world reorganizes itself naturally, one realization at a time, becoming increasingly authentic, increasingly balanced, and increasingly connected to your deepest truth. Your priorities slowly change without needing force. Values that once directed your decisions quietly lose their influence. In their place, new desires emerge with calm certainty, asking not for approval from others, but for acceptance from you. This transformation is not meant to happen overnight. It unfolds through countless small moments that slowly reshape your life from the inside outward. The energy of the 77 portal supports this reconstruction, while your willingness to trust the process allows it to continue. As you surrender to that unfolding instead of resisting it, something remarkable begins happening. Rather than feeling lost, you become more grounded. Rather than searching outside yourself for identity, you begin discovering stability within your own spirit. The person you are becoming no longer depends upon external expectations for validation, because your sense of self is now being built from an inner foundation that cannot easily be shaken. That is why you are closer than ever before to understanding what has truly been calling you throughout this entire journey. You are closer to genuine clarity than you have ever been. You are closer to truth than you once believed possible. Most importantly, you are closer to the authentic version of yourself that has patiently remained beneath every layer of fear, doubt, and limitation that has gradually fallen away. Do not dismiss what has been placed before your awareness today, because these words are not simply ideas to consider before moving on. They represent direction offered at precisely the moment you are capable of recognizing it. If something within you responded while listening, if you felt understood, if even the smallest part of your inner world awakened as these words unfolded, support this video, subscribe, and remain connected to this frequency because the journey continues beyond this moment and your presence within it matters. The portal now stands open before you. The signs have already revealed themselves. The way forward has been placed within your sight. Everything now rests upon a single decision whether you are ready to step through that doorway.